Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're out here taking a look at one of the best value entries in the luxury mid-sized crossover segment, but also one of the most overlooked. This is the 2014 Acura RDX, and if you didn't know it, it got a complete redesign in 2013. For some reason, a lot of people seem to think that the RDX is smaller than it actually is, and I think that's why a lot of people overlook it. The RDX is actually about the same size as an RX 350, a Lincoln MKX, a Cadillac SRX, a Volvo XC60, BMW X3, Mercedes GLK, etc. It's a solid mid-sized 5-seater crossover vehicle. It's not a compact luxury crossover like you'd think the Lincoln MKC would be. This generation of RDX grew a couple inches in just about every dimension versus the outgoing model. But a lot of the reason that this model looks so much bigger than the outgoing model is simply styling. We have a much more aggressive front end with the Acura shield that you see on all the Acura models in the US. It's a little bit more demure here than we've seen in other Acura models. I think it's very attractive on this front end. But also the rest of the RDX has been styled to make it look bigger than that outgoing model. The way that Acura styled the side of the RDX, it makes it look a little bit lower and a little bit longer than some of the competition. But when you actually look at the numbers, this is the same height as the Lexus RX 350, and it's just a little bit shorter than that Lexus model. It's all down to the styling on the side. It has a relatively high beltline, relatively low greenhouse that gives it a slightly sexier look, but does hamper a little bit of rearward visibility. The RDX also has a higher ground clearance than most of these luxury crossovers. It comes in at around 8.1 inches, which is a little bit lower than the Volvo XC60, but it is notably higher than that Lexus RX. In addition to the sloping rear glass, you can also see what's going on in terms of style. This roofline really doesn't plummet that much at the back versus the middle of the car. It really is right about the same height. However, with the glass taking this drastic angle at the back, it makes it look a lot sleeker, a lot more coupe-like in the back. The RX looks much wider from the rear, and part of that's because of these shoulders in this design right here, these slightly protruding tail lamps. We also have hidden exhaust tips on the back, and overall I think the back end of the RDX is a little bit more exciting than something like an RX 350. Admittedly, that's not a difficult thing to achieve. With almost everybody in this segment moving away from 6-cylinder engines to 4-cylinder turbocharged engines, Acura did an about-face, and they actually moved from a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine in the last generation RDX to a 3.5-liter V6 engine. This is basically the same V6 engine you'll find under a wide variety of Honda and Acura hoods. It produces 273 horsepower and 251 pound-feet of torque in the RDX trim. With this engine upgrade, things actually improved in terms of fuel economy. Fuel economy went up to 20 miles per gallon city, 28 highway with 23 miles per gallon combined in the front-wheel drive model, 19, 27, 22 combined in the all-wheel drive model like we're testing right here. Some of that fuel economy improvement has to do with the 6-speed automatic transmission that you now find under the hood of the RDX, but a lot of it has to do with the Acura cylinder management technology, which allows this engine to run on 6, 4, or 3 cylinders depending on the load and the needs of the driver. Variable cylinder management isn't exactly new, but this is probably one of the most advanced systems on the market. The reason is not just because this can operate on 6, 4, or 3 cylinders, giving you more options than the competition, but also because Acura installed active engine mounts in this car. Think of active engine mounts as noise-canceling headphones for your engine. This system basically monitors engine vibrations, listens for them, and then it plays back a negative vibration through those active engine mounts, thereby canceling out the primary vibration. That's exactly what noise-canceling headphones do. By doing this, in this car, you cannot tell whether this engine is operating in 6, 4, or 3-cylinder modes, and that's really different than the others out there on the market, because in the Chrysler and GM and other systems out there, you can tell very slightly when the system is operating in reduced cylinder count mode. It's not horribly noticeable, but you still can tell when it's happening, and you just can't in this engine. One major change for the 2013 and 2014 model year is right back here, and you'll notice this badge just says all-wheel drive. It no longer says SH all-wheel drive or super handling all-wheel drive. Let's talk about the difference between all-wheel drive and super handling all-wheel drive, because there are a lot of misconceptions about all-wheel drive systems in general. The RDX is a front-wheel drive based vehicle. That's both this generation and the last generation. So if you opt for an RDX without all-wheel drive, all the power is going to the front wheels. The all-wheel drive system in this RDX can lock up a center clutch pack, and it can connect the front axle and the rear axle together, thereby splitting the power 50-50. With this car on regular old dry pavement, it is not possible for this car to send more than 50% of the power to the rear. So you can have 50% of the power to the rear, 50% of the power to the front, or all the power to the front, none to the rear, and everywhere in between those two figures. This is very common for front-wheel drive-based all-wheel drive systems. So the Volvo XC60, the Lincoln MKX and MKC, the Cadillac SRX, etc., they will all operate in basically this same way. Now, a lot of manufacturers will say, with asterisks, can send up to X amount of power to the rear wheel. It's more than 50%. That's under a very limited set of circumstances. So basically, if your front wheels had absolutely no traction and the rear wheels had traction, then maybe you could send more power to the rear. But on dry pavement or even on wet pavement where traction is not an issue, 50-50 is all you're going to get out of those systems. Acura's super handling all-wheel drive system is entirely different, and you'll find that in the MDX as well as the Acura TL at the moment. The RLX does not get that system, and now the RDX doesn't get it either. What super handling all-wheel drive does is it actually makes the rear wheels spin faster than the front wheels. So it still locks up a clutch pack, but then there's a separate transmission basically in the back that actually accelerates the rear wheels, makes them spin faster than the front wheels, thereby making them drive the car forward. With that setup, you can get up to about 90% of the power to the rear wheels. Super handling all-wheel drive also takes things to another level. So versus this RDX, something like a TL or an MDX with the super handling all-wheel drive package can not only get more power sent to the rear axle than the front axle, but it can also direct up to 100% of that power to a particular wheel whenever the car feels like it. It's not happening in this RDX, but it does happen in the TL and the MDX. Driver's seat comfort in the RDX is excellent. I have a multi-way power driver's seat with a two-way power lumbar support, the two-position memory right there on the door for the driver's seat. Also have a tilt telescopic steering column with a decent range of motion. One thing to keep in mind, however, is that unlike most of the competition, this power passenger seat is only a four-way adjustable power passenger seat, which makes it a little bit less comfortable for front passengers. There's no way to adjust the height of the seat bottom cushion or the angle of that seat bottom cushion in the RDX. Despite its reputation as being a small crossover vehicle, the RDX's back seats are very accommodating. I have 2 to 3 inches more legroom back here than you'll find in most mid-size luxury crossover vehicles, and in truth, only the Lincoln MKX beats the RDX in terms of rear seat legroom. This is more than you'll find in the Lexus RX 350 or any of those other competitors. Behind myself, I have about 4 or 5 inches of legroom left, and if I move over to the right seat, you'll see that I have about 1.5 inches of legroom left with this front seat all the way back in its tracks. This was suitable for a 6'5" passenger I had in the car. Although my view is a little bit obscured by this glass line that plummets towards the rear of the vehicle, I do have a decent amount of headroom back here. I have about 1.5 inches of headroom sitting in the outboard seats. Still have a reasonable amount if I sit in the middle seat. Still have about 1.5 inches right here in the middle seat. We are in an RDX with the sunroof, so do keep that in mind. Being the value entry in this segment, there are a few things back here that you won't find that you will in the competition. No storage in the rear armrest. We have 2 fairly small cup holders in the back. We could fit one of the largest takeout drinks that you can find in American drive-thrus, but we weren't able to put 2 back here. And we also won't find any air conditioning or HVAC vents for the rear passengers. Thanks to the large amount of rear legroom, these folding rear seat backs can be folded down even if these front seats are all the way back in their tracks and in a moderately reclined position. That's something you won't be able to do in something like a Volvo XC60, which does have a fairly cramped rear seat. All RDX models have height adjustable seatbelts for the driver and the front passenger. We have perforated leather, and these seats are heated but not cooled in our RDX model. Doors in the RDX are a mixture of hard and soft touch plastics. So we have soft touch plastics right there on the armrest and above the armrest, but the lower portions of the door panel are hard touch plastics. This is a little bit different than you'll find in most entries in this particular segment. On the door, you'll see one of the speakers in our optional ELS surround sound system. We also have speakers in the doors as well as speakers in the dashboard. The dashboard of the RDX is a soft injection molded plastic dashboard. This is metallic effect trim. It's just plastic made to look like metal. You won't find real metal or real wood trim in any RDX in the US. We have a very large glove compartment here, easily able to accommodate a large tablet computer. See right there we have instruction manuals, a DVD case, etc. And there's a little divider to help you divide your cargo inside your glove box. Because we're in the technology package model, we have this large 8-inch LCD dominating the dashboard in its own binnacle right there, as you can see. We also have a surround sound speaker right above the LCD in that little grill right up there. If we had the base RDX, then we'd only get a 5-inch multi-information display. We have a lot of buttons going on in the dashboard, single slot DVD player right here, direct access buttons to most system features, and this joystick arrangement is how you control that LCD above there. We have a ring that spins around, we have a joystick that goes up and down, side to side, and clicks to enter. Below that, you'll find standard dual zone climate control. Because we have the model with the technology package, ours is also GPS linked. So the side of the car that has the stronger sun gets more cooling power. Right over here, you'll find the start-stop button for the engine. That's because we have keyless go as well as keyless entry on our RDX. Right here in this opening and closing cubby, you'll find the auxiliary input, USB input, as well as a 12-volt power outlet. Very large cup holders right here on the dashboard, easily able to accommodate the largest size takeout drinks that we were able to throw at it. Very traditional shifter, heated seats, and then a very large center armrest with storage right here. You can see it's a very deep cubby because of the front-wheel drive nature of the RDX. A decent amount of room right there and a little divider to store additional things in. The RDX has a simple and clean 4-dial instrument cluster, and if we zoom out to the steering wheel, we have Acura's very attractive 3-spoke steering wheel with a ton of buttons on it. Over here we have our radio control buttons, phone hang-up and pickup button, voice command button, back button. These 3 buttons control the multi-information display right there between the speedometer and the tachometer, and over here we have our cruise control buttons. On the back of the steering wheel, you'll find the RDX's shift paddles, down on this side and up on the other. As I've said before, manufacturers tend to apportion their space differently, and Acura tends to favor rear seat legroom over cargo room, and that's really obvious in the back, where we only find 26.1 cubic feet of cargo space back here. This is one of the smallest cargo areas in the segment, although it's still much higher than you'll find in your average midsize sedan, of course. The Lexus RX 350 has a whopping 40 cubic feet, and it's by far the biggest. Pretty much everybody else in this segment slots in right around 32 or 33 or so. One nice touch back here is that in addition to these handles right on the seat back to lean the seat back forward, you can also pull these handles from the back. It makes it a lot easier to tilt the seats forward if you're in the back and you need to do it from back here. They're also spring-loaded, so you just pull the handle and the seat just flops forward. It's a lot easier to do that if you need to put something large in the car. Very handy. We also have the power tailgate because we're in the advanced package model. There's a little button right here somewhere that gives us an overall score of 7 out of 10 points in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. The weight difference between the RDX and the rest of these mid-size luxury crossovers is extraordinarily obvious out on the road. Even though the RDX doesn't have as much power as most of the competition, it's still faster to 60 than most of the competition. Most notably, this RDX is a half-second faster to 60 than the Lexus RX 350 F Sport, even though the F Sport has a brand new 8-speed automatic and this RDX only has a 6-speed. It's because this is 700 pounds lighter than that Lexus model. We scored 60 in just over 6 seconds, which is notably faster than pretty much every version of the Volvo XC60 except for that very fast T6R design model. It's definitely faster than the BMW X3 28i as well. Suspension tuning in the RDX is moderately firm. This is approximately similar to what you'll find in the Audi as well as the Volvo competitors. Cabin noise is something that Acura has typically struggled with, and that's true for the RDX as well. Our cabin noise test at 50 miles an hour came in at 74 decibels, which is a little bit higher than most of the luxury competitors, but it is quieter than your average mass market sedan. Acura has a well-deserved reputation for building excellent handling front-wheel drive vehicles, and the RDX is no exception. Even without the super handling all-wheel drive system, the RDX feels very connected to the road, and it also handles very well. We don't get the same kind of powering around the corner feel that you do with the super handling all-wheel drive system, like in a TL or like in an MDX, but this always feels very sure-footed. The key difference is when you're powering around a corner in this RDX, it can feel a little bit front-heavy, very much like the Audi Q5 as well as the Volvo XC60, the Lincoln as well as the Cadillac competition. However, the lighter overall weight of the MDX helps this handle better, and it also feels better than those heavier competitors. The light curb weight pays you back in other ways as well. Over about 700 miles, this RDX has averaged 24.9 miles per gallon, which is 3 miles per gallon better than its EPA combined average. That's thanks to the light curb weight as well as the cylinder deactivation in this car and an overall very efficient 3.5-liter V6. That's most notably 2 to 3 miles per gallon better than I averaged in the 8-speed Lexus RX 350 F Sport, and considerably better than I've ever averaged in a Volvo XC60, a Lincoln MKX, or a Cadillac SRX. Mostly because they're an awful lot heavier, but also because they don't offer the same cylinder deactivation systems that this RDX does. The RDX stops notably shorter to 60 than most of the entries in this segment, definitely faster than the RX 350 and the Lincoln MKX because they're so much heavier than this RDX. The light curb weight also seems to help the steering feel in this car because, well, it is still isolated, it's not as numb as some of the competition. The only downside worth noting is this 6-speed automatic transmission. It's not as fast shifting as the ones used by the rest of the competition, and first gear is strangely low on this Acura 6-speed, so you can't use the paddle shifters to paddle shift into first gear until you're basically crawling along, so it does make that first gear a little bit less useful. The RDX is an awful lot of fun out on these winding mountain roads, and in an interesting twist, Acura has given this transmission a true manual mode. So with the exception of the transmission shifting out of first gear automatically for you before it hits red line, this transmission will stay in every other gear if you command it from the paddles. So right now we're in second gear, and we can make this engine scream up to 7,000 RPM, and it does sound awfully good up here. Well, I really wish that Acura would make super handling all-wheel drive at least an option in the RDX, because it would take this from definitely fun to that next level of excitement in this segment. It would make this compete more directly with something like a BMW X3. I admit that for the average driver, it probably doesn't matter. And by leaving out the super handling all-wheel drive, they've given this vehicle better fuel economy as well as better 0 to 60 times, which is what most drivers are really after. Pricing for the 2014 RDX is very simple because there are really only two different options available on the RDX aside from colors. We have the all-wheel drive system, which we've already discussed, and we also have the technology package, which includes the 8-inch multi-information display we saw on the inside, navigation software, the premium sound system, which is a complete Dolby Pro Logic surround sound system with a center channel speaker and a subwoofer in the back, power tailgate, xenon headlamps, fog lamps, as well as a voice command system for all the features. That's all in one package, and then we have the all-wheel drive option. So that means pricing starts out at $34,250 for the base front-wheel drive model without that particular package. If you want to add all-wheel drive to that base model, it's $35,920. The all-wheel drive model with the technology package, as we've been seeing it here, is fully loaded at $39,620. And that's all pricing without tax, destination, or title fees. If you want to know more about pricing specifics or direct apples-to-apples comparisons with the competition, I encourage you to go visit my friends over at TrueDelta.com. You won't find the same kind of luxury gadgets and goodies and optional extras on the RDX that you'll find in most of the competition, and that includes the Volvo, the Lincoln, as well as the Cadillac competition. Instead, the RDX is quite simply the best value in this segment. At under $40,000 fully loaded like we've been showing you here, the RDX is an incredible buy when you compare it to the competition. Even compared to the former value entries in this segment like Audi, Volvo, Lincoln, as well as Cadillac, the RDX is thousands and thousands less for a similarly priced vehicle. The RDX isn't just the best value in this segment, however. It's also the third best handling, probably one of the best performing sedans, and has incredible gas mileage as well. Well, the RDX isn't exactly my first pick as far as favorites in this segment. That would probably be the BMW X3 with the Volvo XC60 T6R design a very close second. The RDX is a very close third overall, and probably the car that I would buy in this segment if it was my own money on the line because of that value. There's really relatively little delta between this in terms of performance and the Volvo XC60. The BMW X3 has a solid rear-wheel drive dynamic that you no longer find in the RDX now that the super handling all-wheel drive system is gone, but for most people that really doesn't matter. Instead, the RDX just delivers excellent value, excellent reliability, and excellent fuel economy. As I said at the beginning of this video, the Acura RDX is one of the most frequently overlooked vehicles in this luxury crossover segment. In fact, I overlooked the 2013 model when it came out and it was completely refreshed. Not exactly sure how I overlooked it like many of the shoppers, but somehow that did happen, which is why we're taking a look at it as a 2014 model year vehicle. Some shoppers may overlook the RDX because of its value proposition. The RDX is without a doubt one of the least expensive entries in this particular segment. However, it is in my estimation one of the best values in this segment. If that value proposition scares you off, however, then just hang on a second, because the RDX isn't just the best value in this segment. It's also one of the best handling vehicles in this segment, one of the best performing vehicles in this segment, has one of the best feels out on the road, and it also has that value proposition tied along with it. Sure, you won't find the range of luxury gadgets and goodies in the RDX that you will find in the competition. However, driving enjoyment is something that's very high on the RDX's list. In my estimation, the combination of top-tier performance, top-tier handling, as well as the value proposition that the Acura RDX is delivering, the RDX should be at the top of everyone's shopping list in this segment. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2014 Acura RDX crossover vehicle. Go ahead and click that subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of our latest videos. You can also find me over at facebook.com/AlexandAutos. You can email me at alex@alexandautos.com. Go ahead and like this video, comment on this video, share this video with your friends, and we'll see you next week.